Washington, D.C. is a safe place right now. Now we're in Memphis. We're doing the same thing in Memphis. And we're going to Chicago. You know, we have a governor that thinks it's wonderful when 50 people in a short period of time were murdered in Chicago. Over 200 people were hit. And so we send in the National Guard. You know what? We send in what's ever necessary. People don't care. They don't want crime in their cities. And we're doing it, and we're doing it well. We're doing it like nobody's ever done it before.
That was President Trump in Norfolk, Virginia yesterday, marking the Navy's 250th anniversary with a partisan campaign rally-style event that drew widespread criticism. Joining us now, California Attorney General Rob Bonta. He filed the lawsuit that led to the judge's decision to block the deployment of California Guard troops to Oregon. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for joining us. As Joe's been saying, the courts had a busy weekend in terms of the National Guard. First of all, let's just start right there. Your reaction to the decision last night.
We were grateful and gratified, and the arguments that we made, the court adopted them and issued a second order in 2 days, a second restraining order, the first on Saturday, saying that the deployment of the Oregon National Guard and their federalization was unlawful. And then the next day, within 24 hours, when it was still unlawful to have National Guards people in Oregon, the Trump administration tried to send 300 of California's National Guard 1,000 miles north from L.A. to Portland. And the judge honestly was miffed and beside herself and wondering how the federal administration could deploy National Guard to Oregon when just the day before she said it was unlawful. So, this is Trump being contemptuous of the law, blatantly and brazenly violating it, acting like the National Guard is his royal guard, his own private army and private police force, trying to deploy them around the country where he wants, when he wants, for whatever reason he wants. It is unlawful, it is wrong, and it needs to stop in the court. The court order yesterday was a good first step.
Elise, this judge must be like some left-wing Marxist appointed by Barack Obama. Probably went. Oh, wait a second. It was a Trump judge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a woman, too, unlike Stephen Miller, didn't seem to know that last night. Can you imagine how angry you would be if you're a governor and your National Guard is being sent on a BS pretense to another state?
Right. So let's explain for people that didn't follow the bouncing ball all weekend.
Yeah.
It started, Oregon's National Guard was stopped by the federal judge. So then the president decided to go to the California National Guard, which had already been federalized. And I had read it's already sent 100 up to Oregon. I don't know if that ended up being accurate or not. But then the judge stepped in again late last night and said, nope, not going to do that either.
It makes no sense. So, Attorney General, what I want to ask you, what's your next step here? How do you see this proceeding, and how do you fight this? Because if I'm a governor and my troops get sent to another state on this pretense, I would be pretty angry.
Absolutely. And I'll first say that Trump appointee Judge Immergut is a true public servant, looked at the law, looked at the facts, called it like she saw it, let the chips fall where they may. Of course, they fell in our favor because they should, because that's what the law and that's what the facts dictated. We have a 14-day restraining order for now. We're moving towards a hearing on a preliminary injunction, as well as a full trial on the merits towards the end of this month, October 29th. So we'll get a more permanent decision then. If the conditions don't change, then we don't expect the court's ruling to change.
Now we're joined by Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for taking the time. So the White House, we know, is now asking the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for an emergency pause on this order by the district judge that's paused, in effect, all of the National Guard troop deployments, whether it's from the Oregon National Guard or California or Texas. The White House argues that the district court has impermissibly second-guessed the president's military judgments. Are you confident this district ruling will be upheld?
I mean, the way you got to mention this and think about it is that this was a judge appointed by President Trump. This is an incredibly well-founded judge and well-researched judge as she went through and looked at the facts on the ground. And the facts are just that. The military is not needed in Portland, Oregon. In fact, in America, just using the United States military in our cities is not normal. And so we do expect, and this procedural ruling, because that's what it would be, a Ninth Circuit procedural ruling, we do expect the Ninth Circuit to deny the president's request and allow this case to continue moving forward.
President Trump claims there are paid insurrectionists at these ICE protests in Portland. What is he talking about?
It's a really darn good question. You know, when I got out of law school, I started doing community theater, and I think the president would give me a run for my money. The fact remains that the judge had an opportunity to hear all the facts from both sides. And the best that the federal government could do was present facts from the president's own Truth Social media. So that's the type of facts that the federal government is working with. We're using real facts in a courtroom, and that's why the judge sided with us. The president just doesn't get off of a helicopter, walk out of the White House, and just make things up. If you're going to do that, you don't get to deploy the military using those types of fake facts. You actually have to have real facts if you want to put the military on the streets of our cities.
The president's deputy chief of staff, Stephen Miller, accused this Trump-appointed judge of legal insurrection. So now we're hearing that word a second time. What do you make of them repeatedly throwing around that word insurrection as it relates to those who push back on the administration?
You know, that's incredibly dangerous rhetoric in a democracy, especially when you have a president who appears to be normalizing the use of the military on our American cities. I was incredibly offended when the president says that this judge is not working for me. I was like, has this man never read the United States Constitution? Does he not understand what having an independent judiciary means? No judge, and it doesn't matter who the heck they are, should ever serve any politician. That's offensive, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You should have some significant red flags in your head when you hear a president saying that, and then when they're attacking the free press, when they're attacking our elections and trying to put the military on our streets. That is un-American, and it has to stop.
What is your view of an out-of-state leader like Texas Governor Greg Abbott basically raising his hand to get involved in your state's affairs and to send in his state's National Guard troops?
You know, this is something that's common sense. So if we start thinking about it, it's like, oh, National Guard troops from another state coming into another state, maybe that makes sense. But now think about it, about your state, the state that you live, and your rights when you have another governor or another state trying to interfere in your own state when a judge, a federally appointed judge, has said there's absolutely no need. It really crosses some stringent boundaries that we've set as a nation. This agreement of 50 states coming together to form the United States. It's wild what's going on in our country right now. I'm patently offended by that. And again, a tremendous amount of credit to the federal district court judge who has kept a really level head and trying to just look at the facts on the ground and say, there isn't a need for the military. You need to stop. And the president's being incredibly cute with this, right? Oh, you can't use the Oregon National Guard. Well, maybe I'll try the California National Guard. Oh, if I can't use the California Guard, now I'll try the Texas National Guard. The reality is there is no need for the military on the streets of our cities here in Oregon. And the judge was very clear when she made her order.
Democratic governors have been sounding the alarm on these troop deployment plans, and California's Governor Newsom wrote this. This is a breathtaking abuse of the law and power by the president. America is on the brink of martial law. And it's not just, let's spring in Democratic Congressman Chris Deluzio from Pennsylvania, member of the Armed Services Committee. Congressman, we just played Speaker Johnson saying he's working in good faith with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, but he's canceled votes. He's keeping the House out of session for another week. Practically speaking, what is getting done?
Well, as you just said it, Speaker Johnson canceled votes this week and last. The Republicans have full control. The House, the Senate, the White House, they put us in this shutdown, and they're afraid to even have members in Washington to get something done to reopen the government. It's important to point out here as well. He has refused to seat Representative-elect Grijalva, who would be the 218th vote to force a vote on the Epstein files. I think he's afraid of that. I think he's cowering in his job. Get the Republicans back to Washington, reopen the government. It's a simple message. He ought to be delivering it to his members.
Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries also spoke out yesterday on being targeted by President Trump in a series of memes since this government shutdown began. Take a listen.
Well, that behavior is outrageous, it's unhinged, it's unreasonable, and it speaks for itself. The American people deserve better than lies, than attacks, than deep fake videos, and the president spending all of his time on the golf course. We need serious leadership, and we will continue to make clear, Leader Schumer, myself, that we will sit down anytime, any place with anyone to address this issue with the seriousness that it deserves.
He says the country needs serious leadership. Are you confident in how your leaders, Jeffries and Schumer, are handling this moment?
Well, look what you've seen from Hakeem Jeffries in the House. He's been very clear. There's a healthcare crisis Republicans caused with their big, beautiful bill and their cuts to Medicaid, and now their failure to do anything on these healthcare subsidies. Let's do something to fix this crisis. We are holding the line to bring down healthcare costs, and Republicans' answer to that, canceling votes and running away from their duty. I think it speaks for itself. And if we're going to go to a fight in the midterms next year about Republicans having no plan for healthcare and Democrats fighting like hard as we can to bring down costs, we're going to pound Republicans. We're going to win next year.
Speaker Johnson did point out that the health care subsidies don't expire until the end of the year, so there are a couple more months. Meantime, thousands of people are going to miss a paycheck on Friday if this shutdown drags on. Should Senate Democrats hold the line?
I think Senate Democrats should do their jobs, find some way to bring down healthcare costs, because as you...
I mean, what you're seeing here is Donald just take loss after loss after loss, right? Governors are realizing you can stand up to them. They're realizing that if they stick together and they follow, like they fight back in court, in politics, on the ground by empowering citizens to resist this federal invasion, that they can win. Because I guess what Trump was trying to think to himself at the beginning of his term was, well, there's a bunch of Republican governors, most of whom, maybe not every single one. Sometimes there are Republicans in blue states that are often resistant of Trump because they know their constituents hate him. But like pretty much all the Republican governors are going to be in his pocket. But it's like, I can just keep the Democratic governors afraid and splintered. And then I can pick them off one by one by one. And maybe that would have worked. Maybe, right? Like, things were quiet when he first came in. But I believe it was the governor of Maine. She did stand up to him, and she said, you know, I oppose your cuts. And remember, she did it at that meeting where he had met with all the governors, and she basically heckled him down, and he got furious. But everything she said, and indeed how she said it, was 100% appropriate given how awful Donald Trump is, and given how awful the things he's doing are, right? Like, and I think that moment, actually, now that you kind of go back and you think about it, and you're like, that might have emboldened other governors. I'm not suggesting that necessarily was 100% the moment, but I don't know, right? Like, after that moment, you saw Newsom stand up. You saw Pritzker stand up. You've seen other governors as well really hone in on Donald Trump. And I do think that this is important because the Democrats don't have direct power in Washington. It doesn't mean that they can't meaningfully offer opposition, but they don't have the House, they don't have the Senate, they don't have the presidency, they don't have the Supreme Court. But what do Democrats have in some cases? They have governorships. They have power in some of the most influential states in the country. And those governors, in many ways, are the leaders of the Democratic Party, and their leadership is needed.